watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is the show where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of property experts. And joining me today is Cam Davedi, founder of Premier Property Group, investor, developer, author and mentor.
Good to see you, Steve.
And good to see you. Joining Cam is Azid Gungar, CEO of Quiddity Group. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Is this your second or third show now? I think it's your third.
I think it's the third one,
Third
right? Yeah.
one, isn't it? Okay,
Yeah.
well, welcome
Sucker
back.
for punishment.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've obviously looked after you fairly well then.
Indeed you have.
Okay, Cam, we're going to start with you. Now, this is a subject close to your own heart. I know that I'm about to enter the world of property investment with 2 HMO buildings housing 12 units. What are the most common mistakes that the experts have seen new entrants to the industry make?
Great question, and HMO is one of our favourite strategies.
Yep.
And the common mistakes that people make, first of all, they don't think about the exit strategy right from the beginning. So, personal example, we had a number of portfolio of HMOs in Newham, in East London. The first government to bring in mandatory and discretionary licensing as well. Mandatory licensing for buy-to-lets, discretionary for HMOs. The thing is, yes, there's specific room sizes and so on, 6.52 square meters, but you can't stretch every single property. So what happens when legislation changes and people have just worked their numbers out on HMO figures on the rentals? Well, unfortunately, they haven't got a viable business anymore, and that's a bit of a problem. So one thing that we always do, in my experience, is we make sure that the numbers are working on a buy-to-let level. So in large cities, we're always looking at 5% plus in terms of gross yield. And outside of London, as we've got areas outside London that we invest in as well, those areas we're looking at minimum gross yield of 7%. Now, if you can factor this in right from the beginning, before you get into the HMOs, and think of your plan B, if you like, then you've got that second exit strategy if the government changes their mind, the council changes their mind, if you find you're in student accommodation and they change the campus, they move the campus along, or those sorts of scenarios where the demographics change and HMOs aren't required anymore. So you still got a belts and braces approach. So that'd be one. Second one would be really think about the capital expenditure, because I'm sure you've seen this on these lovely forums in property where you've seen all these beautiful HMOs and they look amazing. And yes, they're generating £2,000, £3,000 per calendar month, which sounds amazing, and it is. However, what they forget to mention is that how about the capital expenditure for purchasing those HMOs? So what we do is we typically get 3 for 2, or sometimes 2 for 1. So think about the capital expenditure. So that means being in the right areas. Obviously, we have a system here which I share with people as well, of course. So that'd be the second one. And the third one is the rentability of the HMOs. So you've got to remember, it's all very lovely and exciting and so on, getting the HMO, getting it ready, fluffing up those cushions and, all the lovely paintings you have on the wall and everything else, but then you've got to fill them. And it's not just filling them, it's actually retaining the people living in those HMOs. So I always go for, in our business, we are always advocating where it's 4, 5, maybe 6 tenants, but the sweet spot tends to be around 3 or 5. These larger HMOs, which are also known as monster HMOs, from my perspective, and I'm a little bit opinionated, don't really work that well. The exit strategy is more difficult. Filling them and actually keeping them filled is also more difficult. Yeah. So that's my
the attrition rate must be quite high on the bigger HMOs, mustn't it? The turnover, and every time you have turnover, you have costs. Don't you?
Yeah, costs, and how important is peace of mind. I'd rather have some peace of mind where you've got that longevity of the business, where you're not just turning into a very, how can I put it, a person who's making money, but you're just a very busy person with a very well-paid job. That's not the point of this, is it? We're talking about a business.
Doesn't take you off the hamster wheel, does it?
Yeah. Doesn't take you. Yeah, you say it very well. Yeah, doesn't take you the hamster
wheel.
But
I think there's an extra point there as well, Cam, isn't there? That you said at the beginning, think about your exit strategy too. And of course, if you don't think of that, it can have awful tax implications if you're not careful, can't it?
Yeah, there's tax implications as well. Tax with property, I mean, of course, one of the advantages of property is that tax is a massive advantage in terms of minimizing it. So there's always workarounds on that one as well, according to HMRC's guidelines. But you're absolutely right. You want to think about that right at the beginning. Agree?
Yeah, sure. Hard to do things retrospectively.
Yes, tell me about it.
Azid, can you add to that?
Actually, I've got a question more than I think it's quite a relevant question right now, where the councils are looking at VOA, they're looking at reassessing the council tax banding for HMOs, and they're trying to say that we're going to tax you by the number of units rather than one council tax for the house. I wonder whether Cam's got any opinions about.
Yeah, I mean, the
how
thing
that looks
is, so we've actually got 5 different models of HMOs. So that's one type of model. So, yeah.
Do you think that will happen? I guess do you have a fear that councils will start taxing by the rooms?
I think they'll do what they can, and with that particular model, so you're talking about more like studio rooms type of setups, but there are again workarounds with that as well.
Yes.
So, for example, with that particular model, and some of these are so easy, simple workarounds. So one of them is if you have a Jack and Jill bathroom.
Yeah.
So you've got a doorway on either side.
Yes.
That's not a separate room anymore.
Okay.
So they can't tax you on a separate studio.
Gotcha.
There's simple things you can put into place, but that's one model.
Yes.
The model that I love the best is what we call the under the radar HMO model, which is 4 tenants or less.
Gotcha.
So that's a regular house, typically a mid-terraced, or can be end-terraced, and you can very easily convert it back into a buy-to-let if required. But that works really, really well. Yes, you got to have. You got to find where the money is in that. You got to have systems and processes, but they're not complicated. You can borrow those.
Yeah. And I've got another one based on that.
Do you want to come and sit here? I think.
They're good questions, though.
I think one of the questions. I think one of the, in my opinion, one of the mistakes, or sometimes people miss, is if you're trying to go for a larger HMO, like Cam was talking about, but you have 6 or more rooms, people forget that you have to have planning permission for that, and that in itself becomes a massive headache. So we don't run anything. So we'll have a 7-bedroom house, but we will run it as a 6-bedroom HMO, not a 7th-bedroom, purely because of the timelines and the cost and, quite frankly, the hassle factor.
Just takes you over that threshold of extra cost, doesn't it, really?
Exactly.
Okay, Azid, your question. Given the rather gloomy predictions about the economy given out by the Bank of England, do the panel think that a property market crash is likely? And if so, will it manifest itself by simply stalling the market or actually reducing prices? If it is the latter, would it be a good time to start building a buy-to-let portfolio?
I think everybody's talking about inflation, interest rates, and crashes. My personal opinion, I think if you cast your mind back to the 90s, to the 2007 and 8s, and then now past COVID, there's always been a fear of a complete correction in the marketplace. Personally, I don't think that will happen. I don't think we'll get crashes in the sense that prices will drop 10% or more. I think what will tend to happen is you'll have a plateauing effect on prices. But this will also happen because more people now past COVID are willing to move. So you're having more listing go on the market. So more houses are becoming available to sell. The demand was surging during COVID. People were buying lots and lots to move out with lot less supply. So that economic almost factor was pushing the prices up. That's the first reason. The second reason it was being pushed up is because of inflation. Buying properties right now is a hedge against inflation. You put £100,000 in the bank, you come back after 5 years, you're left with about 77,000. So people are buying these assets that will be worth something else on a longer term. The last point I'll make about crashes is if you look at economic data of 60 years in the UK, a guy called Thomas Piketty, a French economist, did it when he wrote his book, Capital in the 21st Century. He showed that over the last 60 years, throughout, even post-war, the property prices do one thing, and they go up. So if you take a long-run view on it, you will always be better off buying a property now. And the last part of that, the question was, is it a good time to buy? I always say to people, look, the best time to buy is when you're ready. So when you've got the money, you've got the funding, you've got the mindset to start investing. So don't try to time the market. Buy when it's the right time for you. And I think, now and all the time is the right time as long as you buy the right property.
I think that's good advice. And I think, again, you can bring into the equation what people have said for many, many years, that property is never a 5-minute business. You go in and you need to be able to stay there.
Yes.
You need to be able to sustain your position, really. Do you agree with that, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, I concur with what Aziz is saying there. So every time, in my experience, I mean, maybe you're like me as well, when every time you say, oh, prices can't go up by another 80% over the next decade, what do? They go up. Oh, there can't be another property crash. What happens? Property crashes. I think we've all got experience of that. The watchers, the viewers here have experienced that as well. So it is about just getting on and getting in and doing it. However, having said that, my view is right now we have the most optimum time that anybody is going to get. You, me, everybody listening in over the next 20 years, probably a lifetime. Interest rates, the lowest they've ever been. They're still very, very low. On top of that, we are, from my point of view, very near the bottom of the market, and you don't really want to buy as an optimum at the bottom of the market because it's just that little bit too slow, because the market will correct itself and start rising. The optimum time to get in is just before the market is at the bottom, and my view is that's where we are right now. There's a lot of data behind that. Inflation, as now the Bank of England is saying, I've been saying it for ages, but now they're getting to the point, it's getting up to 9-10%. We all know inflation isn't 9-10%, it's actually even more than that. You've got to, because obviously they're measuring it by their basket of goods.
Yes.
Of course, our real measure isn't just the basket of goods that the Bank of England are measuring. Yeah. So inflation is much higher. However, which is not great for the economy. However, for property investors, if you think about it, if you're leveraging your finance, money in the bank or money that's a loan, is still money. And if you're using that for income producing assets as a business, then that money that is actually being eroded. Yeah. So in a strange way, inflation is actually reducing the debt that you have in real terms. So just adding to the point of great time to get in.
Okay, lovely. Well, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break when we'll be asking Azid and Cam even more questions.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm here today with Cam Davedi and Azid Gungar. So Cam, your second question. I've been encouraged by a number of online mentors to enter into the let-to-let market. The suggestion seems to be that I offer to lease for 5 years with an option to buy at the end. However, how can I be sure that I can raise the funding to buy so far ahead? Would a 5-year track record derived from the letting income be enough to secure a mortgage?
Interesting question again. So first of all, I'd say an extra added point to that question is check out your mentor online. Is he or she doing what they're actually advocating that they want them to do? Yeah. That'll be first thing point checking on. Yeah. Now coming to the direct question, options are great. So an option is literally as it says. Now we talk about options, there's purchase options, lease options. I'm guesstimating that the person asking this question is talking about a lease option. So you'd be renting that property, and then at some point you have the option to buy at a predetermined price. So the advantage that you've got there is you don't have to buy. So if things change, if the circumstances change, or they can't get the funding, or there's an issue of any kind, they can literally walk away from the deal. However, they also have the point of the deal is locked in, so it's a legally binding contract. So as long as they can get it all together, they can buy the deal. So the answer in the question is actually in the question because it's an option in the first place. Now, having said that, you've got a nice time frame. So once you've got the options secured, you have a nice time frame to get the funding together. Like I say, it's a case of they don't have to purchase. So that time length really helps. So that's the way option deals work. In my experience, we use these more for development really than these sort of rent-to-rent scenarios. Great strategy. I think there's other strategies that the listener could also have a look at as well.
I think if I was a landlord and somebody approached me with that kind of deal, I'd just want something from them that told me that they got the substance to be able to buy at the end. Otherwise, you're entering into a pretty futile deal, aren't you?
That's true as well.
What would I look for, Cam? What would I ask for if I was a landlord?
If you're a landlord, okay.
Seller, yeah.
Sure. So, okay. So let's put the shoe on the other foot. So I'll show you how I do these. So typically with developers, so what we say, it's a normal conversation. So if I say to you, so you've got this property here, what's the rental value for this property?
Whatever, £2,000 a month.
It's a £2,000 a month. Just wondering, would it be useful if I could pay you 2,200 per month? Would you like that?
I'd love that.
All right, great. I love the property. It's a great investment for you. Would you like to capitalize on this opportunity at some point when you can maximize the cash on this?
Of course.
Okay. What do you think the market value would be as a guesstimate in 5 years from now?
Whatever. You tell me.
So you pick. Obviously, no one's a fool. They'll say, right, okay, it's worth whatever figure. Let's say it's 500,000 or whatever the number is. It's 500,000. Okay. Would you be interested if I could actually get you 550,000 and confirm it right now? So you got a surety. You don't have to, but I can give you the 550 in 5 years' time.
But Cam,
If I can't,
yeah,
you can have your property back, and obviously you've had extra rent from me.
right. Okay. I'm not sure how much that would comfort me. I don't know. What do you think?
We get approached all the time. We letters from people coming back from courses. Say, oh, we'll rent your house and we'll make extra money. And I think for some, actually, one of my best friends, he's done it. He's got a career. He's not really bothered, but he wants to build something that I've been coaching him along for 20 odd years. So he's quite happy to give away that house and quite happy to make that consistent money. But the due diligence we did with the people who wanted the house was credibility, has been doing it for a while. If you've just come out of a course, you've not done anything, you've got no business substance, I've warned him away from that. So there are people out there that are, you can trust to go and give your property, and they will do a good job on it. And you don't have the hassle factor of management. But the capital increase, he pockets. I say to him, don't do the 5 years from now, I'll give you the option to buy it. I said, you keep the house. So that's my take on how I would do it with my friends. Rent to rent, for me, it's. I agree with Cam. I think if you are a passive income generator, there is nothing at the end of this. If you don't have the option to buy, the landlord, my friend, takes his house back. In 5 years' time, you've got nothing. You've made money, yes. You've made a job out of yourself, but you've not built any kind of income stream that will sustain.
See, what we've got to remember here is if we're having an honest conversation, people are quite greedy out there. If someone is offered more money, they will take it. And actually, they'll perceive it as being quite foolish. Because if you hear the conversation I had there, is would you like some more money per month? Okay, yeah, of course I would. Would you like a bit more money at the end of it? If I could get that to you, that's there as well. And then we don't mention options or lease options. That is the legal team then mentioning that, and that's thrashed out between the solicitors. So in my experience, people, and it has to be the right clientele. You wouldn't do it. People listening in here probably would assess that. But how can I say? Like I say, people are greedy out there, and they'll go for it, and you secure it.
Cam, I think you hit the nail on the head when you opened your answer by saying, have a look at what your mentor's doing, see if they've really got the experience that they say they have, because you and I will look at the trade press and the adverts, and we see all these adverts that say, make £1 million, don't use your own money, just use other people's money, you'll be rich within the year. And it ain't going to happen. You're right, you've got to be guided by people that have actually done it.
Sure. Being honest with you, I have call them students, people that are achieving these results. I'm not saying everybody achieves it, but people that you follow our systems, use the process, stuff that we've made lots of mistakes from, they learn from them, and there are ways of doing it. I'm not saying that's the only way. There are a number of different ways, but I mean, these options, I do them, like I say, for developments, and they do work. I mean, we've got in terms of the option side of things, 3 of our development projects we've got going on right now. Those have all been creative deals and kind of similar options. Rather than options, we've been dealing with exchange and delayed completions, but a similar format. So they do work. They don't work every time, but they work for certain scenarios with certain vendors.
Sure. Okay. Azid, your second question. I have recently bought an HMO property and had intended just to continue running it as an ongoing business. However, I am finding the management and control of it as an inexperienced landlord somewhat stressful. I guess I have 2 choices: either put the property back to a single dwelling, or perhaps create 6 separate flats to sell off on a long-term leasehold basis. Could the panel advise on the pros and cons of this, please?
Okay. So first thing to say, I think I love HMOs. I think HMOs to build income on a monthly basis within the same property is better than buying buy-to-let. The challenge with HMOs is the regulations, rightly so, because you've got 6 up to 7 people living in one house that are not related. That you need to kind of curate, I guess. So I would say because of that, you need processes. I think Cam talks about property is a business. You've got to have processes, you've got to have systems in place. If you don't have that, you can fall foul of the rules and the regulations of a HMO. How can the viewer get around this, first of all, before we tackle the second part of the question? The first thing I would say is maybe give it out to a property management agent. So that would be the easiest way. Okay, it costs you money because it will cost a lot more money than managing a buy-to-let. But that is one way of the viewer able to keep.
It's a definable cost, isn't it? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's pretty locked in as well. So you can get them to the property management agency to take them on. Failing that, the second part of the question is around creating leases and creating split units. The assumption I'm going to make here, Stephen, is that this is a big HMO because you're not going to be able to create leases and within a kind of almost like a studio, a flat basis, unless the property is quite big. Let's make the assumption the property are big enough for 6 one-bed flats.
Yeah.
Then that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, I love that strategy of title splitting because, I mean, this is where you really create some great value. We will typically go in with that kind of property and do exactly that. We will create and carve out 6 individual units, split the title away from 1 freehold, and then 6 individual leases. We don't sell, so I would never sell. So I buy it and I refinance it, take all my money out, and then move on to the next deal. The viewer can do the same or sell if they want to do that, capitalize the money now. Or what he or she will do is leave 6 individual units, refinance on mortgages, rented, and then the income that's left over, that's his or her profit to keep.
Perfect. Sounds like a dream.
It is a dream.
Okay. Well, look, that's all we've got time for in this show. So big thank you to Cam Develli. Thank you, Cam, for coming in. And to Azid Ungar, thank you, Azid, for coming in again. Look forward to seeing you next time. Join me again, Stephen Galpin, on Probably Question Time next time.